Does your baby fight against the swaddling blanket? Today we're going to talk about what you're doing wrong, how to fix it, and how to calm your fussy baby so that they start to relax as soon as that first corner gets tucked in. So if you're feeling helpless and desperate, then you come to the right place. So let's get started. So swaddling isn't complicated, but there are things you can do that will make it less effective. Firstly, when you lay your baby on the blanket, make sure to put the base of their neck at the top edge of the blanket. This is the first mistake people make with swaddling. They put their baby down with their head on the edge of the swaddle, thinking that it will be more cozy to have some of the blanket up around their faces. And that's thoughtful, but it's not what the baby really needs. We want the blanket down and away from their face because we don't want any edges of the blanket to get close to their cheeks. If we finish the swaddle and the blanket is bunched up where the edges are touching their cheek, this can trigger their rooting reflex and make them start to look for their next feed. And this isn't necessarily a crisis, but it can be stimulating for them, which can interfere with their ability to calm down or stay asleep. The second mistake people make is to swaddle with the elbows bent, thinking that the babies need their hands next to their face. And now I know that most babies will have a flexed posture with their hands up next to their faces, and even in utero you'd see those adorable ultrasound pictures of them sucking their thumbs or their fingers, and it's counterintuitive to pull those hands away from their faces. But I'm going to tell you to do it anyway, and here's why. When a baby is inside you, it's cocooned inside the walls of the uterus, and those walls push in on the baby in all directions, and this helps them to guide their hands back in towards them, often with their elbows bent, essentially helping the baby to bring their hands close to their faces. Once they're born, there's no walls outside helping them to keep their hands in place, and they don't have the control to put their hands in their mouth without that assistance. Because they have such poor motor control, they're just as likely to scratch their cheeks or flail their arms around as they are to actually get a hand or a finger into their mouth. And if they do manage to get it in there, they don't have the motor control to keep it there, which is maybe even more frustrating for them. Pro tip, keeping their elbows straight and their arms at their sides is also good for sleep safety. This helps to keep babies with advanced motor development from rolling over onto their sides in their sleep. The other problem with swaddling with their elbows bent is that it makes it much more likely that they're able to wriggle out of their swaddle or loosen it, which is actually more frustrating for babies than a tight wrap. This is the third mistake people make when swaddling, is keeping the blanket loose, thinking that if they make it tight that it might hurt their baby or restrict their movement too much. And this is fairly counterintuitive, but a tight, secure wrap provides them with that same deep pressure that they're used to feeling from all directions inside the uterus. If their wrap is loose, they don't get the benefit of that deep pressure. So we want to start by folding one corner down. Even with the very large muslin blankets, we don't want to fold it directly in half because this eliminates these smaller corners that we're going to make use of. Start by placing the base of the baby's neck at the edge of the blanket and grasp the baby's right arm with your left hand. Hold it tight against their body while you take the top left corner of the blanket in your right hand and pull it tightly across their body, making sure to keep their right arm close to their side. Tuck that side under their bottom, and I like to roll them up onto their right side to make sure that I get that first tuck flattened underneath them so it's more comfortable when they lay on their back. Next, you want to pull the bottom corner up to their left shoulder. This is one fold that you do want to keep nice and loose to allow their hips to move. You want them to be able to flex at the hip and bend their knees comfortably for hip health. Depending on the size of the blanket, you can either just fold this corner up onto their chest or you can tuck the corner under their shoulder. The next step is to hold their left arm in place with your right hand and pull that small left corner down across their chest towards their right hip. Keep a firm grasp on that corner while you pull the last big corner directly across their body, tucking it in on the other side. The fourth mistake people make is to wait until their baby is crying to swaddle them. This is really something to practice when your baby's calm, not something to master when they're already losing their minds. Very few people can learn something new when their baby is a screeching purple weep. One caveat to this is that this is not a completely accurate demonstration because this is a 2-month-old baby who's been swaddled regularly for sleep since birth and is already anticipating the next move. Initially, your baby will resist straightening their elbows, and that flexed posture is developmentally appropriate. That doesn't mean that your baby doesn't like swaddling, or that it's dangerous or bad for their arms in any way. Eventually, your baby will start to relax and straighten their arms when the swaddling starts, knowing that it helps them to feel better and be more calm. The fifth mistake that people make, and I think maybe the most important one, is thinking that swaddling is on its own calming for babies. Swaddling isn't inherently calming. And I know that sounds blasphemous, but swaddling is not supposed to calm babies. And here's why. The purpose of swaddling is to decrease their startle reflex. They startle very easily and sometimes seemingly without triggers. And with every startle, they flail their arms, which is stimulating and leads to the release of stress hormones, which of course leads to more flailing. So the purpose of swaddling is to break this cycle. Breaking the cycle gives babies a chance to focus on the other calming strategies that we're going to learn about in parts 2 through 5 of this series. So, mistake number 5 is assuming that after your baby is swaddled, that you're done, and that's all you should need to do to calm them down. It's kind of like thinking that learning how to put the key in the ignition of your car is all you need to know. It is a critical first step, but if you don't do the steps after that, you won't get where you need to go. So that's it for swaddling, and as always, remember that the best way to take care of your kids is to take care of yourself. Thanks for joining me.